Good morning, and welcome to another Writer's Morning Commute. As I mentioned last week, I had wrote a short story that I was planning to submit, and I eventually decided that it was too much story for too small of a word count. And part of how I came to that conclusion was by submitting it to various critique groups online. And in the process of doing that, about half of the feedback was really positive. People who really liked the premise, who really liked some of what I was doing, who said they really enjoyed the story, but still had, constructive feedback to give. And the other half of people who basically said that the writing was, mediocre at best, and it was just kind of okay for like a high school student's writing assignment for class, which I am definitely not a high school student. I will be 27 tomorrow. So it's been a while since I've been in high school. And a lot of that feedback really hurt to read. So I thought I would talk about how to handle that kind of feedback that feels like it's just being unnecessarily harsh. So, the places I submitted my feedback to were the subreddits Fantasy Writers and Destructive Readers. Fantasy Writers is a great place to submit short stories or opening chapters for fantasy books. People there are usually pretty positive. They might sugarcoat things a little bit, but they'll help you kind of see which direction to go. Destructive Readers started as a group where people basically just said the worst possible things they could about each other's writing. The goal was just to make the writer feel as bad as possible to help them develop a thicker skin, so that when other people said things, it wouldn't hurt as much. It's evolved, and they've tried to rehabilitate the group into something that's more constructive. So you do usually get really good advice there. However, some people still go there, whether it's just their personalities or it's their type of critiquing. I'm sure they would argue that they're just being honest, quote unquote. But a lot of people seem to go there just to pick people apart for no real reason, or in my opinion, because they're kind of good writers and they're starting to learn the rules, so they go there thinking their writing is a whole lot better than everyone else's, and especially if they see writing that they think is better than theirs, they'll feel threatened by it. I don't necessarily think that's what happened with mine. Like I said, I do think mine has some issues, but I've seen that before in other people's work, and it baffles me. Anyways, so how to handle it when you get feedback like this that really hurts to read. So my process is to start by letting myself be sad, essentially, let myself mourn for a day or two. And that can be really hard to work and write more when I'm in that stage. But at least for me, I am dealing with depression and anxiety. So yeah, I just have to kind of let myself feel that for a little while. If you can get through that without having to, all power to you. I suggest ignoring it. But if you have to feel it for a day or two, that's fine. But give yourself a hard cutoff after a couple days. if possible, from there, I suggest you go look at what else that person has critiqued. Because a lot of times I find that if I read other things that, I don't care about one way or the other, I'll see that they're unnecessarily harsh to other people, and that will make me feel better about what they said about my own. I'll also sometimes look at like 1-star reviews of books I love that are traditionally published, and just seeing that, normal, very successful authors get hate thrown at them reminds me that that's fine. And after all that, what I do is I go through and I look at the critiques, and I make a list of the things that they talk about that they didn't like that I can change and that I agree with. I put that into a separate thing. I word it however I need to word it so that it's helpful to me. That way I have a neutral way to look at a list of to-dos to improve my story. So whenever I go to actually edit my story, I can look at this list of things that are in my own words, that aren't mean, that aren't surrounded by harshness, that I can change, that I have power over. And then I do it. And I resubmit it, and the cycle starts over. So I hope some of that was interesting or beneficial for you. I know this is a really sore subject for a lot of people. It's really hard to get your work cut apart. So thank you for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it a lot, and I will talk to you soon.